Well, hey, Eli.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good.
Great. Okay, so I've got a question for you. Have you ever lost something and then found it again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what was it?
My teddy bear.
Ooh, the teddy bear. How long was it lost?
I think about a week.
Oh, that's hard. That is very hard. Where did you end up finding the teddy bear?
I went on a trip and I accidentally forgot to bring it home. So then I needed to email the people who I was hanging out with, and they sent it back.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it went on a journey, and you went to great lengths to get it back.
Yeah.
Well, that's really exciting. That shows, you know what that shows is tenacity. Do you know what that word means?
No.
That means that you're not willing to give up until you get what you think you need. And that's a great skill to have. Welcome to Lightcatchers, a storytelling podcast for kids who can find the good in the bad, the beautiful in the ugly, and the light in the darkness. This season, we're following the adventures of Bob the Bad Pirate, a pirate who is not very good at being a pirate. This is part 2 of our season finale. So, if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, check it out first. The creature was slicker than Zoe expected. She had to grip onto some barnacles stuck to its neck to keep from falling into the sea beneath her. The seven-headed monster of the seven seas was confused. It had never tasted squirrel and wasn't quite sure if it liked it. The other 6 heads shared the confusion. And for a moment, there was a pause. The monster paused as it stared down at Bob the Bad Pirate's crew. Bob the Bad Pirate's crew paused and stared wide-eyed at the towering monster in front of them. And Zoe paused as she steadied herself on the neck of the monster. But the pause did not last long. Bob the Bad Pirate shouted, "The monster's taken our beloved squirrel. Let's make sure it ends there. Attack!" And with that, the pirates went into action. Each fighting, or at least trying to fight, one of the 6 unoccupied heads. Loretta put her frying pan to good use and whacked one of the heads square in the face. Leroy hooted before scooting toward a different head to swing his shovel at it. Silver-eyed Sylvia and one-legged Lori teamed up to fight one of the heads. Lori used her spring leg to pounce on top of the heads so Sylvia could smack it with her book. Colossus Klaus grabbed a neck while Pequeño Pedro used his tiny teeth to bite into the not-so-tiny monster. Bob had his sword out and swung at the monster, each time complaining about the damage the swings were doing to his back.
Feel bad in the morning.
The crew all fought with courage, eventually shooting more cannons and guns and rum barrels lit on fire. But no one fought with more courage than Zoe. To destroy the 7-headed monster of the 7 seas, you needed to pierce a small section behind the main head and push the sword as far as it would go. Zoe started by swinging around the neck to grip its mouth. The monster flailed about while Zoe held on. Her sword was out. She'd landed a blow on the right side of the beast's neck. In pain, the monster heaved Zoe away, who fell and landed on the monster's back. Seizing the opportunity, Zoe swiped again at the monster before running up the neck of the main head to attack again. This happened a few more times. Each attack brought Zoe closer to the weak spot on the back of the monster's neck. But with each blow, the monster fought harder against the attack. The 7-headed monster was curious if there might be more squirrels, but would settle for a meal of pirates if it had to. The crew got creative.
Squirrel! I got a squirrel over here!
One distracted the head while the other attacked.
Just kidding!
Leroy and Loretta did a dance while Bob and Polly the pigeon ran at the head with a sword.
Over here! What are you guys?
Unfortunately, Bob was also distracted by the dance.
Oh, I like that.
And ended up not doing much to the monster apart from bouncing it away with a hip hop and a shimmy.
Let me try. Whoop, and...
On Zoe's last attack, her sword scratched the back of the monster's neck, making the monster rear its head back and launching Zoe into the air. And that's how Zoe landed in the monster's mouth. The sky was dark, and the sea churned beneath them. Water crashed against the hull, and once again everyone paused. The crew gasped. Bob shouted out,
Bless my Brussels sprouts! Get out of there!
Pequeño Pedro jumped on Colossus Klaus' shoulders and covered his eyes. The rest of the crew stood still, feeling helpless and overwhelmed. The 6 other heads stopped what they were doing and wound around to look at Zoe in the mouth of the main head. The monster was smiling. Zoe was scared. In a moment, everything she had ever known, every adventure and memory and fear and hope flooded her thoughts as she braced for what she thought was inevitable.
The sea is rising all around you. The wind has stopped, the future's bleak. The fear is growing all around you. The sky is filled with stars you've never seen.
I remember your father would always get a hankering for fish and chips whenever we put down anchor. I miss him and his hankering, as I'm sure you do as well. But I'm glad there's a part of him still here, keeping me safe.
I figured if the hankering chose you, then it chose the crew as well.
Now, Zoe the Ghost Sword, would you mind scratching my poor old back?
But don't you worry about the future. However long our time may be, 'cause we've got love that lasts forever, and love is stronger than the sea.
But then she had a thought, a glimmer of an idea.
Zoe the Ghost Sword. That really is a cool nickname.
And a smile crept back across her face. She looked at Bob, who stood wide-eyed and afraid on the deck, and shouted out, "I'll see you soon, Captain! This is for my dad." And then she dove further down the monster's throat. For the crew, time stood still. Loretta fainted. And Bob, forgetting about the pain in his back and the shivers down his timbers, ran toward the monster, sword out,
Zoe!
ready to leap off the ship. If it wasn't for Colossus Klaus and one-legged Lorry holding him back, he would have. The monster was confused. It wasn't ready to eat Pirate, and started to fling its 7 heads around as not to choke. A few seconds turned into more. 10 seconds turned into 20. 20 turned into what felt like eternity, until suddenly the monster stopped. And its eyes grew wide. The monster's head slowly fell toward the ship, the main head falling right at Bob's feet. Bob lifted his sword, but before he could strike, a silver blade pierced out of the monster's neck. The blade grew, and soon Zoe's hand pushed out of the barnacle-clad flesh. The pirates all grabbed for her hand and pulled. And within a minute, Zoe stood on the deck, ghost sword in hand, watching the lifeless monster fall slowly back into the sea. The crew all stood in awe. Those with hats took them off and placed them upon their chests. The sun broke through the clouds and shone behind Zoe. Polly the pigeon flew from the mast and rested on her shoulder. In the light, Zoe looked taller and stronger. The last head of the seven-headed monster of the seven seas sank beneath the water as Zoe turned to address the crew. Here lies my father, the great pirate Silverton, the bravest pirate I've ever known. And now he can truly be laid to rest. The wind blew through her hair as she spoke. A tear fell down her cheek, which caused tears to fall down the cheeks of every other pirate on board. Bob didn't even try to blame an onion for his tear and allowed himself to weep along with his crew for his long-lost friend. My father lost his life trying to give me a better one. I know it didn't work out the way he planned it, but I can't think of a better life than the one he gave me with you all. At this, Bob blushed and became Bob the Red Pirate.
Oh, you're never lost at sea when you're with your family. Though the waves may break, they won't break us apart. And even if you feel alone, you're never too far to come home. Don't be afraid, this love will guide you through the dark.
So why don't we finish what my father started? Hoist the sails and let's go get that treasure! The whole crew shouted, "Arr!" and cheered louder than they ever had. Leroy and Loretta let out a hoot and a yippee. Bob, who was still a bit red, put on his hat and pretended to look over the waters as he composed himself. "Captain," Zoe said as she stepped up beside Bob, "I think it's time you led us to the treasure." Zoe held out the map to hand over to Bob. Bob held out his hand and then stopped.
Zoe, I do believe this is your treasure to find. You grab the helm and take us there.
Zoe smiled and paused before giving Bob a big hug. Bob couldn't speak and just treasured it more than treasure itself. "Thanks, Captain. I won't let us down."
Hoist!
Bob the Bad Pirate, after quite a bit of effort, climbed up to the crow's nest to be on the lookout for the island on the map. The island with the treasure was only a bit further than the seven-headed monster. Bob had a spyglass out with a big end on his eye and was sure the map was wrong. He yelled down,
Don't trust the map! We've still got a hard day of sailing before we enter the golden waters of this treasure-filled island.
They were less than an hour away, and Zoe called out commands with the new authority. The crew felt alive, and, now that they believed in squirrels, hoped they could find some on the island to get a taste of Loretta's squirrel pie. When the ship pulled up to the island and dropped anchor, Bob leapt with surprise to find the island towering before him.
Fastest ship in the sea,
he said with a smile. Bob started to climb down to help with tying down the ship, but slipped on the first rope and fell. Colossus Klaus saw him trip and arrived just in time to catch Bob before he crashed onto the deck.
Oh, I was just testing your reflexes, Klaus. You still got it.
Thank you, Bob.
Klaus replied, setting Bob down on the deck. Before they jumped off the ship and onto the shore, the crew gathered around the map. Silverton's art was exquisite, and the island he drew bore a shocking resemblance to the one that stood before them. And as soon as the island came into view, everyone on the ship felt like they had seen it before. They all figured it looked familiar because of Silverton's artwork, but something about it felt more than that. Leroy was already on the beach, shovel in hand, when he looked back at the crew and yelled out, "That gold ain't digging up itself!" With one last glance, so he rolled up the map and shouted, "To the treasure!" The pirates followed behind him as they all moved toward the shore. Bob the Bad Pirate was so excited to be back on an island filled with treasure, but his pace didn't show it. While everyone ran through the shallow water, Bob shuffled, taking breaks to rest his back and his legs, and talked a lot about barking dogs. As Bob made it to the shore, he and Leroy fell into step together. They had both spent their lives in pursuit of gold, with very little to show for it. But they were happy. Along the way, both of them learned there was more gold in the searching than the finding.
That's what I found, too.
As they walked, they told tales of their adventures.
It wasn't looking good.
Leroy fell down laughing when Bob told him about Blackbeard's dog and his burrito hankering.
A simple misunderstanding.
Bob snorted with laughter as Leroy regaled the first time he found a squirrel burrowing in his bed.
I guess he thought my toes were his breakfast.
Leroy shouted, sending Bob over with laughter.
Toes.
Loretta loved Leroy, but was tired of him always hanging around the house talking about gold. So she was delighted he found a friend.
To the treasure!
Zoe loved watching Bob laugh and find a kindred spirit. The crew was looking for the gold, but they were mainly treasuring the tales being told and the giggles that followed. Bob and Leroy kept walking, and the crew followed. As Zoe walked, the feeling of familiarity grew and grew. On the one hand, once you've been on one tropical island in the Caribbean, you've been on them all. But it didn't feel like she had seen trees and mountains like the ones she was looking at now. It felt like she had seen these very trees and mountains before. She lingered back to investigate further. She got out her map and her compass and looked up at the sky. As the crew followed Bob and Leroy into what looked like a cave, Zoe split off and walked further down the shore. As she walked, she came to another cove, a perfect spot for a ship to drop anchor. The tide was out, and peeking up above the water were the tops of two tall boots. When Zoe realized what she was looking at, she gasped. As Zoe was discovering the truth about the island, Bob, Leroy, and the rest of the crew walked further into the cave. They didn't mean to walk into the
A
cave,
swirl's all fuzzy like that.
but Bob was so distracted by Leroy's tales, and Leroy was so much more comfortable in darker quarters, neither really noticed. The rest of the crew was starting to get a tingly feeling they couldn't quite understand as they followed deeper into the cave. Bob was in the middle of telling Leroy about the time he accidentally started a war
You know I do like a clean ship, so that
when he walked into the hard stone wall at the end of the
I think
cave.
I may be over-polished. Ooh!
The sound was enough to jar the memories of the rest of the crew, and they all gasped at the same time, coming to the same realization.
Whoa.
Bob stammered back, confused, and looked for a place to sit down.
Rest a little bit.
Zoe ran up to share the news with Bob just as he sat down on the ledge beside the end of the cave. Zoe yelled, "Bob, this is the..." But it was too late for poor Bob,
Here's a good spot.
because the moment he sat down, a secret lever triggered a trapdoor and sent Bob falling into a golden, glowing pit. Now Leroy and Loretta gasped as the entire crew, even Polly the pigeon, rushed to look down at Bob. Bob the Bad Pirate was in shock. All he wanted to do was rest his barking dogs and find a bit of comfort, because every pirate deserves a bit of comfort every once in a while. His hat lay next to him, and when he went to pick it up, his eyes came into focus on the mountain of treasure that lay before him. Bob smiled as he put his hat on, and looked up at the rest of the crew.
Well, Zoe, I do believe we may have already found this treasure,
Bob said, peering up from the pit to the crew crowded around the trapdoor. Zoe smiled. I do believe we have, Captain. And with that, the crew started to laugh. And the laughter grew and grew until the joy they felt together overwhelmed any joy they found in treasures.
Hey, Bobby! I love you guys!
It overwhelmed any shame and longing, any worry of not being enough or not becoming enough. It was a joy that overcame all fear, one that could only come with a life defined by love. As Bob laughed and looked down to the ground, something caught his eye. It was easy to miss, especially with the gold, jewels, crowns, and goblets that surrounded it. To most pirates, it wouldn't look like a treasure at all. But Bob knew what it was right away. Under his breath, Bob said,
Silverton, my friend, you truly were a great pirate.
And he reached down to pick it up before Colossus Klaus and one-legged Lorry pulled him out of the pit and back into the cave. The pirates all felt exhausted. Not the bad exhausted you feel after a day of picking up rocks for no reason, or mopping the deck of a ship that doesn't need mopping. It was the kind of exhaustion brought on by contentment, an exhaustion that led the pirates to walk away, concluding that Silverton's treasure, though amazing, was better left for another pirate ship on another pirate day. When they got back to the beach, Zoe blurted out, Bob, I found something I think you'll like. She pulled his boots, filled with treasure, out from behind a tree. Bob yelped.
Bless my Brussels sprouts! My boots!
Bob grabbed them, dipped them over to dump his treasure on the sand, and put them on his sore feet.
Oh, Zoe, I've missed these boots. Where did you find them?
In the water, where we first dropped anchor, it seems like your treasure fell through the holes in your pockets and into your boots. I'm not sure how your boots ended up in the water, but I'm not surprised they did. Zoe was still smiling.
They are a bit damp, I guess,
Bob said as he tried running around in a circle.
Oh, missed you guys.
He stopped, out of breath, and remembered what was in his hand.
Zoe, I have something for you, too.
Bob opened his hand to reveal a golden fountain pen.
This pen belonged to your father. I assume he left it for you to find.
Zoe, who was not much for crying, started to cry as she took the pen into her hands. She remembered the way her father would write and draw with this pen by candlelight. She watched him when he thought she had already fallen asleep. It must have been the very pen that made the map that led them here in the first place. Zoe cried and laughed and held the pen and finally allowed herself to feel all of it. The crew waited on the shore, and Bob, after giving it a bit of time, reached out and gave Zoe a hug.
Now you get to write the story.
When Bob said this, the rest of the crew began to weep. A mixture of joy and remembrance, sadness and delight. They wept with Zoe and with Bob, and with the memory of Silverton, and all the great pirates who wrote their names upon the stars and the waves and the depths below the waters. They wept in the same way they laughed, and when they finally all rested, they walked with full hearts back to their beloved ship. Zoe and Bob ambled along the shore. They didn't need to talk, and were happy to let the day linger in the quiet. But then Zoe saw the ship and stopped. Bob, what is that? Zoe sounded surprised.
That's our ship, Zoe.
Bob replied, a bit confused. No, I mean, what's that painted on the back of our ship?
Oh, that's our ship's name,
Bob said, shrugging like it was obvious. Zoe looked at Bob. Our ship has a name?
It's always had a name. I kept meaning to get it painted on the back, but never found the time. I finally got it done while we were in Tortuga.
Bob, why did we not know it had a name? And what even is the name?
I guess I just assumed everyone knew.
Zoe couldn't find the words. Bob continued.
The RMS Carpe Stella. It's Latin. I took a year off from pirating a while back to study. I wanted to learn a language that would help me in my travels across the 7 seas. Latin seemed the most practical.
Zoe still didn't know what to say. So after a few moments, she started walking toward the ship and just smiled. Carpe Stella. I like it. Leroy and Loretta were able to chase down a few squirrels on the island and made their famous squirrel pie for the crew that night.
Come and get it!
Colossus Klaus brought a barrel of the finest pirate's ale,
Prost!
and the rest of the crew grabbed their instruments while they feasted. The sun was setting later, so the orange and red hues rested on the deck for longer as they played and shouted and ate into the evening.
Yeah! Whoa! Yeah, please! Pedro Pequeño! I didn't even know he played guitar!
Leroy, after eating 3 helpings of squirrel pie, yelled out, "I wonder what this would taste like in a burrito!" So the crew grabbed the tortillas and made everyone a second dinner of squirrel burrito. Bob was about as happy as he'd ever been and sat by the helm, watching his beloved crew enjoy the true treasure. Zoe noticed Bob sitting by himself and joined him. It's hard to say, but this might have been our best adventure yet. So he handed him a burrito and a mug of ale as she sat beside him.
I do believe you're right, Zoe. It will be hard to beat this one.
Bob took a bite of the burrito and smiled as he savored the flavor. Bob knew it was time for a conversation he had been putting off for a while. Zoe just smiled as she sat next to him and looked at the crew.
Zoe,
Bob said with a bit of hesitation,
I do believe that this adventure might have been my last one as your captain.
At first, Bob's words didn't connect with Zoe. The beauty of the moment and the emotions of the day made time feel slow and dreamlike. Then the words sunk in, and Zoe stood back up. What? No, that wasn't your last adventure as captain. So he said this loud enough for the crew to hear. Bob, taking his time and grabbing the railing, stood up beside Zoe.
I've had the privilege of captaining the finest ship and the finest crew that ever set sail in these waters. I've seen treasure, fought battles, and defeated monsters. But now,
Bob paused as he leaned deeper onto the railing.
Now I'm a bit tired. My back is hurting, and my dogs are barking. And I'd like to find a bit of comfort. Because every pirate deserves a little bit of comfort every once in a while.
Zoe, who thought she had already cried all the tears she could cry, teared up again. But no, you can't leave. You're supposed to be the captain, and I'm supposed to be the first mate. How will we go on without Bob, the bad pirate? By now, the whole crew was silent. The wind blew gently, and the glimmering firelight of lanterns took over as the sun made its final descent below the horizon.
Zoe, it's time I retire. But you don't need to be afraid. The truth is, this ship has always had a better captain.
Zoe was in disbelief. Who, Bob? Who could possibly follow in your footsteps?
One who could sail through the Bermuda Triangle with her eyes closed. Who can save her captain from the grips of Captain Blackbeard. Who can free her crew from French sailors born in New Jersey. A captain who can defeat the 7-headed monster of the 7-headed seas and avenge her father with the dreaded ghost sword.
Zoe blushed.
Zoe, it's you. You have been the captain of this ship for a while now. It's time we made it official.
With that, the rest of the crew burst with whoops and huzzahs and args and shot their guns in the air. Bob took off his hat and handed it to Zoe. The wind picked up as she held the hat, and brought it to her head. The crew grew silent again as Zoe paused. "Are you sure, Bob?" Bob smiled.
The most sure I've ever been about anything.
Zoe smiled back and placed the hat on her head. Polly the pigeon flew again onto her shoulders, and the crew erupted in applause. Leroy and Loretta held each other and said amen and blessed be. Before she knew it, the crew hoisted Captain Zoe on their shoulders and danced her around the deck. Even Bob, with his bad back and knees and feet, managed to dance and laugh and celebrate with the crew.
I still got it! Steady now! Captain Zone! Here we go! All right! Okay.
After the dancing, Bob went back to the bow and looked over the waters.
Yeah.
He knew it was time to retire, but he was sad. He had been captain of the Carpe Stella since Silverton met his end, and wasn't sure what a bit of comfort would do to him in the long run. Zoe, with the hat still upon her head, joined Bob at the bow. "So, what are you going to do, Bob?" Zoe asked. Bob thought about it. It was actually all he thought about these days. And as he considered his options, he could only ever think of one thing he'd like to do in his retirement.
Well, Zoe, I was actually wondering if maybe, with your permission, if I could stay on board for a bit, as a consultant.
Bob was a bit embarrassed as he asked. Zoe smiled as she considered it. The longer she considered it, the more nervous and uncertain Bob became. A pirate consultant, Zoe mused. I think I could use a good pirate consultant on board.
Really?
Bob said.
Jumping ginger beans and belly buttons. I promise I'll make you proud.
Zoe wasn't sure if he would make her proud, but she didn't care. She just smiled, looked at Bob, looked around at the crew in the ship, stared out into the ever-changing sea and the endless horizon, and began to sing a familiar song.
There's a mountain in the air and a staircase leading there, telling me it's time to find a place filled with treasure, filled with jewels, a place where both wise men and fools could fill their hats and hearts with golden grace. So give us gold and give us silver, give us jewels to fill our souls, give us every day a sliver of the beauty we behold. 'Cause we are pirates through and through, and we will be till we die. So give us treasure, true and true, till we meet the by and by. Give us gold and give us silver, give us jewels to fill our souls, give us every day a sliver of the beauty we behold. 'Cause we are pirates through and through, and we will be till we die. So give us treasure, sure and true, till we meet the by and by. Give us gold and give us silver, give us jewels to fill our souls, give us every day a sliver of the beauty we behold. 'Cause we are pirates through and through, and we will be till we die. So give us treasure, sure and true, till we meet the by and by. Give us gold and give us silver, give us jewels to fill our souls, give us every day a sliver of the beauty we behold. 'Cause we are pirates through and through, and we will be till we die. So give us treasure, sure and true, till we meet the by and by.
Hey, Eli.
Hey,
So, what was your favorite part of the episode?
probably when Zoe dives down the monster's throat.
Yeah. Were you a little scared? Were you a little worried that Zoe wasn't going to make it out?
Well, I was guessing she was gonna make it out, but I still was pretty scared.
Well, hopefully you were only scared for just a little bit.
Yeah,
But that was one of my favorite parts to write.
yeah.
If you could rename the pirate ship, what name would you give it?
Oak Grove.
Oak Grove?
Yeah.
Oak
That's
Grove.
where I live.
That's where you live? Okay. I love it. It's simple. It's straightforward. It's got some regional impact. I love that. Why do you think it was important for Bob to hand everything over to Zoe at the end?
Well, she does need a bit of comfort, but rather than that, she's a really good first mate. I mean, she does defeat the seven-headed monster of the seven seas.
Yes, which is pretty wild. I don't think I could have defeated that monster.
No, neither do I.
Eli, you know what I love is that one day you are going to be stepping up into that role, and like Bob, somebody's going to be giving you the reins to a big life, and I'm excited for that for you.
Me too.
Eli, would you like to read the credits for the Lightcatchers?
Yeah. Lightcatcher is created, written, and narrated by Cody, a.k.a. CC Kimmel. Sound design and mixing by Jonathan Roberts. Podcast produced by Dan Gummel in partnership with Gray Space and Gum Audio. Music written by Cody Kimmel, produced by Hannah Zaver, and mixed and mastered by Reese Zacher. To support this ad-free podcast, download free coloring pages and subscribe to the Lightcatcher magazine. Go to bealightcatcher.com.
You just nailed that. That was so good, Eli. All right, well, goodbye, Eli.